There has been a global push for increased transparency in the extractive sector. Many countries and organizations have implemented initiatives and regulations to promote contract disclosure. Despite some progress made in implementing the extractive industry's transparency initiative standards, Nigeria is still lagging behind in ensuring an open process in contracts awards. We sampled various opinions on the level of transparency and accountability in government and oil companies in terms of standard of operation in the extractive sector.
So it requires multi-stakeholders approach to make it happen. Government, civil society, the citizens, and the companies to make it happen. So if the government has said we will not do it, I will say no. But government has not told us. Governments over the years, they have not resisted it. And in our case, the government of Nigeria signed on to the global EITI and have been implementing it and have not put any lead or censorship on us. So, but you know that reforms don't come easy. It's a reform issue. And these reforms has to be explained to government, to the citizens, to the companies, to the beneficiaries. When a policy like this EITI requirement comes into, we have a responsibility to simplify this. What is contract disclosure? How would contract disclosure be implemented? What will be the benefits? Who is going to gain? Who is going to lose? What will be the role of the citizens? The role of the citizens to make it happen. This is an advocacy issue that I will also throw it back to you. The media has a role, the civil society has a role, the NITI has a role, all our stakeholders have a role. And this discussion has just started. So, except this is well simplified. If you don't do it, those who are benefiting from the system, we miscommunicate it. And that will now promote resistance. So we have a very strong responsibility to explain these issues, highlighting the benefits and how this can improve transparency and accountability. Because in transparency and accountability, like the EITI will always say, everyone gains. But information, public education is so key. And so in Nigeria, the conversation has started, but it has not picked up. And we have a huge job in our hands to do.
In our law as it is now, we have the beneficial ownership disclosure regulations. We have the contract transparency, which mandates these companies, including the NNPC that is signing on behalf of Nigeria, to publicly disclose these contracts. We journalists are oftentimes privy to the paper signing, but are not privy to the details of what has been signed. And those details are actually what is the bone of contention. Yes, I mean, under normal circumstances, the only opportunity available for you to be able to unravel the details of what has been signed is the FOI Act. And that's the only instrument truly that we have. Beyond also, I also believe very well in lobbying for some of these things. Being persuasive, interpersonal relationship. When you do not come with this sort of attack sort of position, when you come with a developmental reporting mindset, that this information that you are seeking is actually for developmental reporting purpose and not meant to which hurt anyone. Sometimes I think diplomacy is better than being on the offensive and always coming off as aggressive. If diplomacy fails, then you may want to apply the FOI instrument, and if that fails, then you may as well proceed to the courts to ensure that these contracts are publicly accessible. And that's why the NEIT, Nigeria Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, has been at the forefront of pushing for contract disclosure and beneficial ownership clause. And we have a beneficial ownership portal in Nigeria existing for the extractive sector, and then we have the CSC portal for the wider business sector. So these contracts, of course, are signed. Communities are not at that table where these negotiations are done. The NNPC does this in trust for Nigerians. So what community members need to do is to know where to assess these contracts. And I also think the lawmakers representing these communities that host oil and gas and mineral resources, as the case may be, also have a role to play in following through with some of these contracts, because of course community members, many of them lack the education, they lack the ability to be able to use technology to follow through with this contract. So lawmakers could find a way to assess these contracts, simplify them for the benefit of their community, sensitize them. Of course, civil society organizations also have a role to play to follow through with all of these contracts, and then simplify the provisions of the contracts and take it to the communities, educate them, to let them know what are the details of the contract, to let them know what company has signed what, and what should be the role of the communities, what should they be expecting, what community related CSRO are part of it, what is the role of government for them in terms of that very contract that has been signed. Gone are the days, in my opinion, where people just agitate from a lack of knowledge point of view, where we just be doing this gra, we no go agree. It is better today to agitate from an informed perspective, where you have the information at hand and you approach these companies when they know that you know what you're talking about. The way they deal with you, the way they address you, the way they negotiate with you is totally different from when you are just agitating from a total position of ignorance. That's when you see them use the kill and divide methodology. They probably just pinpoint one youth leader among them, put that person aside, give that person something, and before you know, all of that riot fades off. And the people are wondering, so have we gotten what we were protesting for? What happened? Why are we no longer protesting? Someone has been settled on the side, but when the collective is well informed and everyone is speaking with the same voice and agitating for the same thing, with reference to contracts that have been signed, the companies themselves know that they have to set up. So I would say civil society organizations have a role to play. The lawmakers representing these communities also have a role to play. And of course, the NNPC has the responsibility to also find a way to engage citizens and also sensitize them about contracts, about beneficial owners of assets within their communities.
Over time. And we know that up to 70 to 80% of transaction with government is in the procurement sector. And that is why, we've been doing a lot of advocacy, in that sector. Because if you get procurement right, you're going to get it right, generally, in terms of our ease of doing business in the country and all that. When it starts with award of contract, and contract award normally has its own procedures. But the challenge is that for us as citizens, being able to, follow through the process. Even from our own procurement process, you see that even as we speak, there's even no procurement council as we speak in this country. So there's still a lacuna there, Then the idea of, because contract award, we tried as much as possible to put in place maybe what we used to call the e-procurement approach. That the moment you use an in-person, contact in contract, you have a problem. Because there may be a lot of discretion, a lot of who knows who, and people are involved. So that is why we are advocating for the use of technology. With the use of technology, if you are qualified to get a contract, you don't need to come and see A or B. or Mr. or Mrs., as the case may be. So I think to a large extent, that is the fundamental challenge we have. That contract is still manually done. The process is still manual. You need to get from one place to the other. You need to present papers physically. You need to show your face. So that is why you start using connections. And once you have a lot of discretion, based on the fact that somebody has to be somewhere physically, meet some people, go through that process, it's difficult to get it right. So what we are saying is that to even digitize the process, even use technology to engage that process, so that once you are qualified, you can present your papers online, and these things will be done without having anybody to use influence or who he or she knows. So I think to a large extent, that's the challenge. And it entails that those principles of good governance. If you look at transparency and accountability, they are one of the about 8 principles of good governance. If you are not transparent, if you are not accountable, if you don't put it as a governance mechanism, it becomes very, very difficult to actually apply. If you don't digitize the process, if you don't apply technology in the process of awarding contract, if you don't put the structures in place, you may never really get it right. Like I said, even in the process of procurement, as we speak, we are not applying the Procurement Act. That council that is fundamental in terms of policy, in terms of knowing who gets what, is still not in place. So when people go and award contracts to their friends, to politicians, and they come together, award contracts, you cannot get it right. So the area we need to actually improve is making sure that the laws are applied. It's making sure that we talked about e-procurement.
In strengthening the voices of host communities on efficiency and accountability in the extractive sector, we seek the opinion of host communities to find out to what extent are they involved in the extractive contract deals.
We know before, we dey inside. As we dey inside, we still dey inside the compound. When they have the agreement with the former minister, say they want to build road. This is what we know. Because we are the citizens of Nigerians. They just park out aside. They say we should park outside. After they say we should park outside, so we are nobody. So as we park our load, we come outside. If they want to blow their rock, they will just whistle. Before they inform, say they won't blow, but now they will just whistle, so they will just go their own. And they are not assisting anybody. So they don't blow more than many bombs where they don't do here. The former minister used to come once a day. Only between the former minister know everything about it. Say government, the thing what government is supposed to do, because not all of us are government workers. We are struggle to get our daily bread. We buy and sell, but government, our people in the top, they didn't recognize the poor people, because we poor, where we dey, they didn't recognize us, It's our father's property, but Onibo dey pack am, So it is not easy. That's why poverty is too much. If we have this kind way government they help we poor, but our Nigerian government they didn't like poor. Now the Onibo way they around them and then they chop everything. And instead of we will be Nigerians to chop our weight.